Welcome to the Art Array.
So today I have a very special guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
My name is Temperance Acquistapace. I'm the owner of Wiku Wandarian Studios. I'm a writer. I'm an archaeologist, specifically zooarchaeology, so I study bones, and I teach. Those are the things that I do.
Oh, fantastic. So it's so funny that I'd seen what you said. I didn't know exactly what that meant. Did your parents watch the show Bones? Like, is that what you're named after? Because it's Temperance, and then that's what she does too.
It is what she does. No,
Oh,
I escaped some abuse, and when I got divorced, I decided to do the Phoenix Rising moment and change my name.
oh, okay.
So, yeah, I changed it all. Um, when I changed it, I was going to be a lawyer. And then I decided that I would rather be in archaeology and in bones because that's what I loved when I was young.
Okay.
That's
So why don't you go ahead and tell us about your most recent work, like whether it's a book or like what you're trying to promote right now?
well, my books I haven't really been promoting because I'm not sure how to promote a book.
Mm.
My most recent artworks, I am beading a deer skull and I'm creating a creek, like a Japanese style creek with two cherry trees and antlers.
Okay.
And it will all be beads that will move with the air currents. So the current of the bead at the end of the snout will move with the air currents. The other artwork I'm working on is mechanic suji,
Mhm.
and I know I butchered that word, but I'm working on it, and it will be chinoiserie painted with blues and whites and floral, and then each crack in the skull will be gilded, so that you can see that the beauty is not broken, just like they do with pottery.
So I took a little look at your page on Instagram and I noticed you do a lot of watercolors, which is something I really like. I kind of wish more people would do the watercolors just because it does have a very distinct look.
Mhm.
Do you have any secrets as far as how you don't get the paints to run? Because I know that's the hardest part, at least I think.
It is the hardest part, and it took a while to master. Time. Time is your friend. You do a layer, and it will be the most minute layer you can see. You won't even see a change, and then you let that dry, and then you go back. And that's how you create the depth and the layers and the details is time. You just let it sit. It is the hardest thing to do as a watercolor artist to stop and walk away so it can dry is got to be the hardest ever, but that's how I do it.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have done that without a friend of mine because I was just they were just bleeding together, and I because I worked in acrylics, um, the concept of stop and let it dry wasn't up there because
Mm.
acrylics, if you let them dry, you can't always blend. And my friend Bonnie said, slow down, let it breathe. You gotta let it rest for a minute, and that's our joke between the two of us is we'll get working and want to keep working
Hmm.
but not let it breathe, not let it rest. So now I have discovered that if I have 5 or 6 different watercolor objects going at once, then I can let them sit and breathe. Not everybody's going to do that, but that's how I figured out how to manage time in my studio.
So that actually is a good idea. Now I know that, you gotta let certain things dry before you go on to the next thing. So, all right, I'll definitely try that because I am getting more into painting myself. I've done a little bit of watercolor. I mostly do like just the standard paint on a canvas, but I've wanted to do watercolor more. So now I know. I'll definitely give that a shot. You wrote police reports a little bit in college. Do you think that translates well with writing a novel, or do you think it's kind of like completely different?
No, um, it was a struggle because it's so concise.
Hmm.
There's no fluff. There's no extra words. I'm not a fluff at all. So police reports were I could bang those out daily.
Yeah.
Um, but to write anything with a lot of fluff with a lot of extra, it's hard. Now I can see it running in my head, but what I write down is a very truncated version of that movie that's going in my head. So it has not been helpful at all. I can write, yeah, but those translating into good novel writing or anything, unless you're going to write crime novels,
Hmm.
maybe it would be helpful in some aspects, but For me, it has not. Some of the parts that I'm editing in Round is a Shape, the detail isn't there. And I can see the detail not there. I just have to wrap my head around how to add it because it's all in my head,
Hmm.
but it's not on the paper. So, yeah, it doesn't translate well unless you're going to write crime novels. And I thought about it, and then I decided that, uh-oh, and then I decided that it wasn't, crime novels weren't something I wanted to write because I had seen and read things that were so disturbing that it just isn't something I want to do.
That's interesting because I'm very similar in the sense that like my first draft of stories, like I have my first book right now, I believe it's 280 something pages. My first draft was like 30, and a lot of those were handwritten. So
Mhm.
I start out very small, like you. Like I said, I'm not really good with the fluff. I get the story out first, and then I kind of add the fluff just again and again and again. And then, aside from your art activities, what do you like to do for fun?
Can I say sleeping for fun? That's about what it's become. I love to cook. I've gotten really into kimchi and fermenting, and we bought a freeze dryer,
Mm.
so I'm going to start doing that. I've always loved to cook. It's just my grandpa instilled that in me that cooking was fun, not the chore that the women folk made it be. I guess that's a lot of what I do for fun. Summertime, I'm always out in the garden barefoot. I track muddy footprints in my house daily. Other than my art, that's really what I do for fun is
Nice.
food and gardening. Yeah, yeah.
And sleep. And then, when you write, do you use an outline?
So that is a variable. D'Artagnan is no outline.
Okay.
There probably should be. Because I'm pretty sure in this last chapter I've been knocking out, there's some overlap that makes no sense. For my time traveler novel, there is an outline. It's not a detailed outline
Hmm.
by any stretch, but it's enough that I can see I need to make it from this point to this point, and then the next one is this type of action needs to happen.
Hmm.
So whereas I don't use it in D'Artagnan and I never used outlines in college, my thesis was written on a very bare bones outline. Some of what I write, I have to have that outline. And I use Scrivener to keep track of because there's so much going on in the time traveler novels. Um, I use Scrivener for that because I can keep track of all of my characters, and then the outline is there. So if I have to glance at it, I can do a quick glance. Now a lot of it's on paper, like you.
Yeah.
I'm a handwriter, so I have notebooks of stuff that I need to transcribe into Scrivener, and I haven't managed to get it done because work and life got just too busy. But it's the one my grandmother wants to read. She got the first two or three chapters I think I sent her, and she's dying to read it, and she's in her 90s now.
Oh.
So she's the motivation for that particular story to get it done. It's a very layered story. Time travel is bits of it,
Hmm.
history. So there's some history in there. I'm very much a Civil War history buff. I love the Civil War. I don't know why. That era is just fascinating to me. The unrest, the movement, the politics, all of it's interesting to me. So it's layered within the Civil War and a little bit of prehistory. And then we go all the way forward to space life. I want it to be a several novel series. So
Okay.
I'll bounce around, and the main protagonist, the main character, she's the one that bounces. And then her history is the back history and the storyline. And then her clients is what she calls them. Her clients are like the movie story, the story that you're going to read for, but you get bits of her life in that storyline.
Okay.
So by the end of it, you'll have her whole life. Her whole life will be laid out, and her family's. But you'll have those bits of stories, like her telling a story to you.
So when did you get bit by the proverbial art bug?
I've always liked art. I've always drawn or sketched or colored or it's always been something in my life. There's a healthy trauma that caused me to have alphabet in my life. Um, and that triggered more art because there was an escape at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the beauty that you see in the world. And I think that's the art bug came from the beauty I could see, the water droplet on lady slipper petal when I lived in
Mhm.
Oregon, or
Yeah.
the dew on the moss, or it's not the overall arching beauty, which is beautiful. It's those weird little things that would catch my eye. When I lived in Washington, I used to go for walks all the time in the mountains, and the early morning dew on an opening fiddle fern is the prettiest thing I've ever seen. And it sits in my memory, that slow moving open and the dew just ticking off of the little fronds. It was it was pretty. But there's also beauty in the skeletons and the skulls I own. The beauty
Yeah.
and the death that is inevitable. So I think the art bug really got me when I noticed the beauty in the world. My earliest memory is red wiggler worms
Mhm.
in my pocket when Grandpa was fishing, and I thought they were so pretty in their movement and their textures. And so I dumped the whole bucket of his worms into my pocket and walked off. I was probably 3, but that's
Oh,
the earliest memory is those textures and the color variations and the movement when they move. I think that's my earliest memory, and that's probably when the art bug bit me. Was way back when I was young. It's always been there in some form.
oh.
I've also always written since I was capable of doing so, poetry and whatnot.
So I have to say that's actually really refreshing because most people, when they're very artistic, it's like an escape. They had some sort of trauma or something like that. So it's actually really refreshing to hear that your main motivation is just the fact that you find the world beautiful. Because obviously it
Oh yeah,
is, but like it's something that's I think not enough people see it that way. So it's actually really refreshing. I think that's fantastic.
8 years ago, 9 years ago, I was told that I had degeneration in my eyes, and that the eventuality would be that the blindness would happen.
Oh,
So the
geez.
beauty in the world became even bigger, and the way that I deal with that. She said I probably won't go blind in my lifetime,
Oh, okay.
but it is deterioration. Um, so the beauty in the world has become even more so.
Yeah.
The That random purple you see in a rainbow, or the rainbow through the rain, has always been a favorite. Me watering my plants and seeing that waterfall in the sunlight, that is so pretty.
Oh,
Dust motes,
yeah.
I love dust motes in the sunlight for some reason. So it's definitely been, I want to translate the beauty that I see and eventually the beauty that I will remember, so other people can enjoy and experience the beauty of the world through my eyes.
So actually, that's kind of funny because the next question was going to be, "What are your goals as an artist?" But I feel you just kind of answered that one, so
Yeah.
you're ahead of the curve here. When you do finish the novel you're working on, do you plan to do self-publishing or do you want to try to go the traditional route?
I'm not sure, to be fair. I've heard good and bad things. Self-publishing can be easy, and some people have said it's hard. I've thought about doing the Amazon thing,
Hmm.
the just EPUBs, and I really think I want a tactile version of my books out there somewhere, not just an e version, and definitely not something that AI can learn and use, because I don't think that's right at all.
Yeah.
I be perfectly honest, I don't. Now, while it's great to use AI for inspiration or to help refine something, I don't think it should be used for the creation of. I think it should be used as the tool that it should be.
Hmm.
Refinement and inspiration. I don't know. I'm stuck on publication, and that could be why I write so slow. Because if I get to the end, then what? Then I've really got to figure that publication thing out. Um, I've talked to a few different authors, and that it's been their struggle in the beginning as well, was how am I going to publish this?
Hmm.
And some have completely left EPUB altogether. I've got a friend that turned me on to Scrivener years ago, and she completely left EPUB because of the AI theft.
Hmm.
So it made me very sad because that's how I read all of her books. I don't know. I honestly don't know how I'm going to publish them. It's going to take time to figure that one out.
Yeah. Yeah. It is definitely difficult. Like I personally am self-published, and It is relatively easy to do. So I do Amazon, where and they partner with another company whose name is escaping me at the moment, but you can do both. So it's available digitally, but people can still order a paperback copy as well. But yeah, it still does give you the option. Like if you do on Amazon, you do still have the option to actually get paperback copies of your book out there. That's what I do. The biggest part is just the promotion, which, from what I understand, even if you go the traditional route, you still have to do most of it anyways. So that, I think, is
Yeah.
the hardest part of the whole publishing process, is just actually getting it out there, getting people to take a chance on it. Because everyone's doing it now, so you got so much competition. So I noticed my next question was going to be if you had any secrets for creating or marketing or anything like that. I know you said you already really struggle with the marketing; you're not quite there yet. But in terms of just any sort of creation, do you kind of have any secrets with any of the stuff you do?
Adults don't want to create like a child, and a child creates out of the sheer joy for creation, not for the end result. The sheer joy for creating something that may or may not be cool to the rest of the world, but boy, it makes their little heart happy. When I worked in preschool, my favorite thing to do was to see that joy. And I think my secret to my work is creating for the joy of. Now, I'll have the idea and it'll be in my head, and the end result's up there. But if I let that end result get ahead of the joy of the creation,
Hmm.
then it usually doesn't turn out like I wanted to. So my secret is to embrace that joy, embrace the little accidents,
Hmm.
because little accidents happen no matter how you create. A little accident will happen. So embrace those Bob Ross little accidents
Over and over again, I say, we don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
and embrace that inner joy. And if the end result isn't the same as your mental result, embrace that too.
Mhm.
This is not always going to be perfect. Perfection is for machines and AI. Art is created from the soul, and you can see that in every artist's work. When I created my logo,
Mhm.
I used AI to create it because I wanted something specific and I could not create that. And it did take a while to get what I saw in my head
Mhm.
onto a screen. So I agree that AI creation is difficult, but I don't think that the soul is there.
Hmm. Yeah.
My logo is very cute and it's very what I wanted, but I don't think the soul is there. My biggest giveaway to anybody wanting to create art is to create for the joy of it and not make the end result be your absolute.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned embracing the mistakes, because I know with me with my painting, what's kind of ironic is a lot of times I don't really know what to paint. So I'll find a picture and then I try to copy it, but since I'm so not good, it ends up being totally different. Like even if I try to directly copy it, it looks so different. It's actually really fun. I'll actually post a little example in here. I'll cut it in. Something I'll post what I tried to draw and then what I actually drew, and I'm sure everyone will laugh.
I've got one right now that's hibernating, for lack of a better word, on my shelf because while it's a beautiful painting, parts of it annoy me because the imperfection is there.
Mhm.
And I got stuck in the imperfection instead of enjoying the beauty and the artistic work.
Well, we're about to wrap up here, but before we go, is there anything else that you really wanted to talk about that I didn't get to, or did you have any questions for me?
How are you on your journey as a writer?
I'm struggling a pretty decent amount, so I do have the one novel that I have published. I didn't get it
Mhm.
professionally edited, and I have mixed emotion about it because part of me thinks it does work for the story because it's a first person narrative and it's supposed to be very raw, very visceral. So part of me thinks it
Mhm.
kind of works, but the part of me thinks it probably should be cleaned up a little bit more. And then I have a second one that I haven't published yet, just because this one definitely does need to be professionally edited. So I'm trying to save the money for that, and then I'm trying to market the first one. And that's really all I do. Kind of like with you. Like I work and then I come home and then I market and then I go to bed and that's my life.
So, in regards to your first one, I think that raw, unedited thought process really gives credence to the first person narrative that you have. It gives that person that grit that I think you wanted to really display.
Hmm.
And I think if you edit it and you soften some of those tones, it's going to take away from that character, the build that you get from the character.
Yeah.
I loved that book. The first person narrative when I started it was slightly confusing, so I stopped and I went back the 4 pages that I'd gotten in and started over again to wrap my head around that first person narrative.
Yeah.
And from there on, the book is just amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It's gritty. It's life in its most basic states, and I enjoyed it, every bit of it.
Yeah.
So
So
I personally don't think it needs edits, but
I've been told sometimes I use the wrong conscious. Like apparently there's time. Like someone else told me that there's times I use the word conscious, but I use the wrong like version of it. Like so, just kind of things like that is what I would sort of like to clean up a bit. Make sure there's no mistakes like that.
I can see little mistakes like that being changed, but I wouldn't change a lot of it. It
Yeah,
it really
exactly.
read so deep and visceral. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it so much, and got to the end of it and thought, why can't we have more of this? This was good. It almost read like the polar opposite of my D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan is supposed to be kind of an angel, but not really an angel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So she's an ethereal being, but not necessarily an angel. And she fights the others. She calls them the others all the time. But you never really understand what the others are, other than they aren't good things. They're
Mm.
bad things. And it almost read like the opposite of her and her. I want to fix these things. And it's not quite a first person narrative. I don't know if I could write her that way, but it really did. When I was reading it, I was thinking, this is the opposite of my D'Artagnan.
Huh.
And it would read really well as two sides of a coin thing.
Interesting.
So read this one and then read this one.
Well, thank you so much again for doing the show. I hope you had a good time.
Mhm.
And
I did.
awesome.